I'm on fire, and I know that I'll break your heart, and I'm sorry, I'm just so tired. These cars are just it, so won't you come?
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and I'm joined tonight by my one co-host for the evening, none other than Mr. Dragon Viper. Dragon Viper, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, just ready to do the show and enjoy talking wrestling.
I am ready for it too. I'll tell you, there was some interesting topics that I came up with today, and I think a few of them are going to be fun. I think they are. And what's going on, Thomas? We hope you're having a great night so far. So welcome in. So with that, the first one that we actually have, and this kind of came up because I heard Kevin Sullivan say it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Since he said it, I'm like, it kind of brings up a good point because you look at AEW, you look at WWE, you look at Impact. Impact doesn't really have this problem, but when you look at like AEW and WWE, maybe you see it to where you're like, okay, maybe this is a problem. And what I mean is, so basically, Sullivan is saying that when you look at these promotions, there are too many championships out there. There are too many titles out there. You know what? I kind of see where he's coming from with that. I do feel like right now there's a ton of titles. Like you look at the AEW side, and every time I look up, like I feel like there's more titles that are just coming in. There's constant titles that are coming in. So, do you agree with what Sullivan's saying? Like that you truly feel like there are too many titles out there?
Yeah, I believe there is. I mean, it doesn't help that they have different shows that's got to have their own titles. Um, I think there's just a little too many out there. I mean, with AEW, they have different shows, but they still have, you know, way too many titles for just not being like a brand divided like WWE is with Raw and SmackDown and NXT. So not so much with WWE because of their brand splits, but AEW definitely I think has more titles than they should need.
Yeah, and even Thomas is saying that AEW has way too many titles. Now I could see it's kind of like you were talking about how if there was a brand split, you could potentially see it. And that's kind of what I'm looking at too, is like if there was a brand split, maybe all these titles that AEW has would make sense. If you're looking being like, okay, we're gonna split these up and you have, half the roster here. And I know that people say, well, you have Dynamite and you have Collision and they kind of split them up, and I get that. I do, but it's not the same because a lot of those titles are kind of defended everywhere. And so
Yeah.
it's because you still only have one a AEW champion, but
Hmm.
you have like the trios champion, you have the TNT, the Mid Atlantic champion, and I think they have like a international championship or something like that. So yeah, and so Thomas saying the trios title have been largely forgotten about over the last month. Yeah, when the trios
Yeah.
title came out, it was supposed to be a big thing. Like people were talking about it, going, "Hey, I'm excited to see the trios championship." People wanted to see it in WWE. I was kind of against that though, because I'm like, do you really want to see a trios championship in WWE? Not really.
Well, see, they started, to my knowledge, and they may have started it earlier somewhere else, but from when I saw it, they started it in Lucha Underground, and uh, I thought that was kind of a ridiculous thing having a trios championship. Nah, you know, tag team, singles champion is fine enough. You don't need a trios. That's pushing it a little too much.
No, I get it. And there was one that when you think like so there's one thing when you talk about titles, there's like one thing that really pops in my head that I'm like I feel like it's something that WWE needs if they're going to add a title. Now hear me out on this one. I feel like if WWE is going to add a title, it needs to be some kind of mid-card title for the women. That's what I feel because they have the women's tag team titles, which meh, it's meh on that part. And then they have the women's championships, but what they don't have is they don't have that mid card. So I do think somewhere along the lines, like they need to find some kind of like mid card title for the female side that they can, it doesn't have to be called like the Intercontinental title. It doesn't have to be called the U.S. title. Just be creative and come up with some kind of title because I do feel like that's the one title that is missing. So
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I agree. I mean, they're trying to replicate almost what the men have, and so I mean, you've got the tag, you've got the heavyweight title, but there is one that they are missing, and that is some kind of mid card title, like Intercontinental US, whatever. So if they're trying to really replicate and mirror what the men have, uh, it'd be a good idea to have one for the women too.
Absolutely. I've I've always said that. I've always said that they needed to have some kind of women's title. Whether or not they actually do it is a whole nother thing. I thought that there was some mention like years ago that they had talked about doing it, but they had never actually officially done it. And I
Yeah.
was kind of looking forward to it to be like, hey, I really hope they do. I really hope they do. But they did not. So I'm glad that we're definitely in agreement on that is something that they should be that they should be adding in. Um, the one title that I'm glad they got rid of though was I'm honestly glad that they got rid of like the pathetic 24/7 championship. It was it was basically a knockoff of the hardcore title. That's pretty much what it was. Just the rules were like a little different because it wasn't it wasn't hardcore battles. So that's and so I was kind of glad they took that title and got rid of it because that was the best thing for it because that title was pointless. Um, but in the end, with what WWE has right now, besides the women's, go ahead and stick with what you got. Because the Intercontinental title's been there, the U.S. title has been there. So the one thing that I think would be cool, though, only because we haven't seen it in so long, and maybe for like a little experimental thing, um, take the U.S. title, kind of scrap it for a little while, bring back the European title, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So Thomas is saying it was just stupid roll-ups
Yeah.
from behind. That's all it was.
Yeah.
But when the hardcore title was there, when they actually had the hardcore championship, it was kind of cool though because you would see people using weapons and throwing people through windows and and like you would see in grocery stores be attacking them with stuff. That was the best thing about the hardcore title. So I love the concept of the hardcore title.
I do
I
too.
understand what the 24/7 title was about. I just didn't like it because it didn't have the same rules as the hardcore. All right. So moving on to our next one. This one actually was kind of cool when I saw this, and I was like, I can't wait to talk about this because this was something that was said by Chris Jericho, and we know that Chris Jericho, you know, being a big name in wrestling, he's done it all. You know, Chris Jericho is one of the greatest of all time, and so I never said the greatest. I said one of the greatest of all time.
Okay, I'll go with that.
Exactly, Chris Jericho, and you can't deny his greatness because that dude has done so much, and he's meant a lot to the wrestling industry. So, so basically, what Chris Jericho was saying was that he was talking about a lot of AEW wrestlers, how in AEW, a lot of these wrestlers backstage think that they are above the law, and it's for various reasons. You know, one way or another, that, you know, Tony Khan doesn't crack the whip on these wrestlers. You know, you saw the whole CM Punk and Jack Perry debacle, and then the Elite and CM Punk and various things like this. And so Chris Jericho is saying this is kind of a common thing in AEW, and people kind of talk about other wrestlers come out and say sometimes the morale backstage in AEW is not the greatest because people think that, you know, they can get away with whatever. So Chris Jericho came up with a simple solution. And when I read this solution, I'm like, you know what? Whether you love the guy or hate the guy, what I'm about to say, I completely agree with. And what Chris Jericho said was, he said, hey, I wish a lot of these new guys here that came to AEW had never been in WWE. He's like, I wish these guys would go work for Vince McMahon for 6 months and learn what it's like to do your freaking job and do what you're supposed to do. Don't act up backstage. He's like, that is one thing that Chris Jericho always gave Vince credit for. He would basically say, you're here to do your job. You're here, you're doing your job, you're here. That's what you're here for. If you're not going to do your job, we're going to send you packing. And so that is like the one thing with Chris Jericho that I agreed with, is that the way that Vince McMahon did that, I felt was good, because he's like, hey, this is your job. You're going to do it. And you're going to do it the way I want you to do it. And so with Chris Jericho coming out saying a lot of these guys needed to you know, work for him for at least 6 months, and they would learn the ropes. They would learn the hard way. Do you kind of agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think some of them would even last 6 months. I think they would just be like, nope, I don't want to be here. I'm done. You know, because Tony Khan is a pretty relaxed, casual boss, it seems like. And so he allows a lot that goes on backstage that shouldn't. Chris Jericho's right that if they were to work with Vince, Vince doesn't, Triple H and all those people in the back, they are not relaxed. They are hands-on, you know, doing their job or you're out kind of people. So, yeah, I agree with Jericho, because if you have a job, you need to do it. And if you're not doing your job, why are you even there? You know, you need to earn money. Well, guess what? Do your job, then you get your money. So I do agree in that sense of what Chris Jericho had said. And like I said, I don't think some of them would even last 6 months. They'd be like, nope, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, and so I was kind of glad that you mentioned the whole thing about Triple H too, because I know that people said, you know what, the morale and stuff backstage is great. But people also know too that if Triple H steps up and says something, people listen, because he does go, he is one of those guys too that don't tolerate BS backstage.
Yeah.
And so when Triple H basically took over, he said, hey, I want the morale the best it can be backstage. If you have questions, you can come and talk to me. But the one thing I will not tolerate is I will not tolerate any BS backstage. I will not allow the morale to be killed backstage. And so I feel like that is something that, you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why with, the rumor swirling too, saying that when they brought CM Punk back, that they had added in his contract and said, hey, there's a behavior clause. If you come in and you cause problems, we're going to make you leave. And that to me actually would not surprise me if that was actually true, because the way that WWE operates, again, is on that morale side. They don't want to lose that morale backstage. And so that would not surprise me at all. If you remember months and months and months ago when CM Punk got released and I was on this show, I said, hey, if WWE and I believe Big B was on the show and somebody else and a few others, and I said, hey, if WWE was to bring back CM Punk, I said it would not surprise me if they brought him back on like a trial run and said, hey, if you come back, we're going to bring you back. But if you cause problems backstage, we're not going to keep you. And if you keep your cool, if you come in businesslike like you're supposed to, then fine. And then the rumors were swirling that that's what happened. So I do kind of agree that that's probably what happened.
I'm actually happy about it.
Yeah.
Because that way, all the crap he pulled in the 9 years ago, and the crap he pulled in AEW, I like it because that way he's not pulling crap there, because it's pretty much zero tolerance with him. They know how he is. They know how he was just like 4 months ago in AEW. So, I mean, I think it was pretty smart that they did that, so that he doesn't start crap again in WWE again.
And so Callan's saying Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, Callan. Oh.
There it is, right? So, yeah. But when they said his first show, like they said his first Monday Night Raw when he was back, they said when he showed up, he was great backstage. He talked to everybody. He wasn't alone. He didn't hang out. He didn't hang out in his own locker room. He conversed with everybody in the back, and that's the kind of morale that I'm talking about that you have to have.
I'm seeing it as a honeymoon stage again. It's been enough period of time that he's trying to make himself look good.
Exactly. We all know that he won't pull any of that crap that he did in WWE. Exactly. And that's why Chris Jericho made that statement of a lot of these guys that have never been in WWE need to work for WWE for at least 6 months to learn what it's like to behave. Because you won't learn unless you go to a company like that.
Well, look what he did. Look what CM Punk did though 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Look what he did. He pulled that crap.
But guess what? He wasn't back. They didn't bring him back until now. So
Yeah.
it was. So again, they didn't tolerate it. They did not tolerate it whatsoever. They did not, because they simply said, "Fine, you want to go? Go." And that's just, and that is the one thing that I've always said about Vince, and it looks like Triple H now is saying that, hey, you know what? If he is that if people want to go, they're not going to make you stay, and they will gladly say, okay, bye, go. We're not going to keep you here, and that's the biggest thing about it. And so Thomas is saying TK just needs to be a boss, and I agree with that. So TK, I feel like with TK, the biggest problem is that he runs it like a fan.
Yeah.
He runs it like a fan and he runs it like a fan and like a friend. He doesn't run it like a boss.
He wants to be liked.
Yes. He wants to be liked by everybody. But you're in an era of wrestling to where you can't worry about being liked by everybody. You can't. You're running a business. You're trying to, let's say, compete, I guess, with another promotion. I hate the word compete because I feel like it doesn't need to be there, because wrestling is wrestling. It is what it is. There doesn't need to be any competition. But if you ask certain people, they'll say it's a competition, but I think it's dumb. It's not. But for him, since he keeps saying compete or whatever, then yeah, you have to learn how to be a boss. You can't just be a friend to everybody. You can't just be a fan. No, you have to you have to be a boss, and therefore I think that's where he lacks. So Christy is saying he did sign a non-disclosure agreement, so he can't talk about AEW. Yeah, and he probably won't. So, which is fine. So that was the second topic that I wanted to bring up. I just thought it was interesting about the remark that Jericho made, because I agreed with it. So, and I thought that you would find this quote, this next one that I'm going to say, I thought you would find it rather interesting, only because this is one of your favorite wrestlers of all time, and this comes from Eric Bischoff. Okay, and I know a lot of people don't like him. I get it, but I think once you hear this, I think you're going to agree with what he said. And this whole Eric Bischoff thing was his thoughts on Randy Orton. And it said, I think Randy Orton is the purest sports entertainer, professional wrestler, whatever you choose, in the business in the last 30 years, other than Shawn Michaels. Is there anybody smoother than Randy Orton? His positioning is flawless. His timing is flawless. His execution is flawless. Forget about everything else that's going on in the ring and focus on nothing but his facials. What is he doing with his eyes? What's he selling? When he's selling, when he's on top, when he's aggressive, he is the purest form of a professional wrestler that I think I've seen in the last 30 years. He's flawless. He is the wrestling definition of smooth. I'm so happy to see him back. I hope Randy rides this out for as long as Randy chooses to ride it out.
Yeah, I can't disagree. There's a reason why he is one of the very top on my list of favorites. Why he is towards the very top of that list. It is the way he is on the mic. He does great mic skills. He is an amazing athlete that does so much in that ring that, even at his age, he's still able to do things in there that, some people at his age can't. And I mean, there's so much about him that and Eric Bischoff's right. I mean, the look in his eyes, it's just everything piles up to make it to where he is one of the absolute top greatest of all time. And I mean, yes, that is my opinion, but he's definitely a GOAT in WWE, as they call, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with what Eric Bischoff said.
And Eric Bischoff is not wrong.
No.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there who may not like Eric Bischoff, and that's fine.
I really don't.
But when he comes out and makes statements like this, he's not wrong.
No,
he's not wrong. And so Thomas Burnett is also saying AJ is right up there. I do agree with that too. AJ Styles is up there also. He is one of the smoothest performers I've seen out there. AJ and Randy are like two that remind me of like guys who you can make a face, who you can make a heel.
Yeah.
And they can, and they're going to tell you a story. They're going to be so good at whatever you have them do. And so AJ Styles is definitely up there too. Now, one guy when we talk about, mic skills, because Randy is definitely up there with Mike. He's up there with in the ring,
Yep.
telling stories, anything he does. Randy is definitely up there. And
I think he's better than his dad.
When he came back, though, he looks jacked, man.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like he's done nothing but worked out for like the last year, because he's huge. But so Tom is saying AJ reminds me a lot of Shawn Michaels more than Randy. So the one thing I will say about that, if you ask me, agree, disagree, I don't care. But if you ask me the best in-ring performer of all time, I'm not saying, the greatest wrestler of all time. I'm saying if you ask me who the greatest in-ring performer is of all time, I'll tell you flat out right now, it's Shawn Michaels. It's Michaels. He is that greatest in-ring performer of all time. I've never seen an in-ring performer as good as Shawn Michaels is.
That's tough. Because, yeah, Michaels is, absolutely one of the greatest. I'm not disagreeing, but I don't know if I could say he's the absolute greatest performer of all time.
Who the heck are you going to put in front of Shawn? It's hard to put. It's hard to take that another in-ring performer and put them in front of Shawn Michaels.
I mean, you've got people like, what Tom has said, AJ Styles. He's right up there. I mean, you have Randy Orton is right up there. You have, and this is in ring. This is everything. Shawn Michaels is up there, but you've got a few other guys up there as well. That in my opinion matches with him. So
Thomas is saying number 2 in his opinion is Ricky Steamboat. Now, I do agree that Ricky Steamboat is one of those guys that I feel like is not talked about enough. That is a very underrated wrestler that people don't talk about him enough. And I feel like Steamboat should get more recognition than he does. So that is one thing that I will say about Steamboat. Now, I'm not saying that AJ Styles is bad, because I think AJ Styles is a great in-ring performer. I told you that before. I agreed with the Randy thing. But what I'm saying is I don't think that a guy like AJ Styles and look, and Randy Orton, I get, the comments that Bischoff made, I agree with. But the in-ring performer side, it has to be Shawn Michaels. Now, I'm not saying that Shawn is as good on the mic as Randy, but the in-ring performer side, that's got to be Shawn Michaels.
Well, I mean, I even enjoyed, Mr. Perfect when he was when he was alive doing his thing, and I mean, there's so many in the past that can like I said, match up with Shawn Michaels. I don't think he's alone in that.
Well, you can always put people towards the top, but that's why it's like when you're saying it, it's saying, in my opinion. And I got that from the words of who said that? That was that Shaq or was that Charles Barkley? It was one of the two that they were on a set, and they were on an NBA set, and they were talking about it, and they were talking to Shaq or Charles Barkley. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of them who people kept coming out and commenting and saying, this is the greatest basketball player of all time. It's facts. And whichever one it was, came out and said, you can't come out and immediately come out and say that this person is the greatest of all time because the facts back it up, blah, blah. You have to basically come out and say, in my opinion, this person is the greatest of all time, and here's why. Now, I'm not calling Shawn Michaels the greatest wrestler of all time. I'm saying that Shawn Michaels is the greatest in-ring performer of all time. And so Gene Carlson is even saying, I agree, it's Shawn Michaels.
Of course she would.
But now, if you're talking about somebody who could really hold their ground in the ring was also Kurt Angle. And his technical skills in the ring and everything Kurt could do in the ring too. He was definitely one of the guys who was also up there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely got Kurt Angle in there.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you love him or hate him, Kurt Angle is definitely. Yeah, but at least you're willing to agree. Yeah, Kurt was a great performer. He was. You can't take that away. Because there are certain people out there that you look at that people don't like, and they go, well, I never liked them, so I won't agree with that. I don't care if you don't like the guy, but at some point you have to agree when somebody accomplishes something good. You have to be like, yeah, like you're right. They were great. You know, it's one of those things. You know, it's like in sports. There's people we're not going to like in sports who people go, this guy was great. And I'll be like, I never liked him, but yeah, he was a good player or whatever, but I never liked him. Like personality wise or whatever. There's reasons why you may not like the guy. But coming out and actually agreeing that they were good is a whole nother aspect to it.
Yeah.
So this to me was just another, and this is why I brought it up, because I knew you were a Randy Orton guy.
Yep.
So I'm almost afraid to ask this next question, because I feel like if I ask it, you're gonna say it just to be biased. Just to be biased.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Is the reason I'm afraid to ask it, because I do believe you're going to be biased. And this question was going to be all about the main event at WrestleMania. Okay. And the question is about the main event at WrestleMania. We know we're still months away from it. But you know that, Randy Orton's back. Okay. So people are talking about, because right now, you know that Randy Orton has that beef going on with the Bloodline.
Yeah.
But, for a while, Cody Rhodes had that beef with the Bloodline too. Last year, Cody was unable to finish that story. Now people are talking about this year that Cody should finish the story. But now people are going back and forth saying, should it be Cody or should it indeed be Randy Orton, who should then basically dethrone Roman Reigns? And I know, being biased, I know where you're going to go with it.
It has really nothing about being biased. It's just I'm looking at it as Orton is now a part of SmackDown. So because of that, yes, I think Orton should be the one to take out Reigns. Cody's on Raw. Maybe they'll play off where Cody wins the Royal Rumble, and then somehow it ends up being Orton, Cody, and Reigns in a triple threat match. I could also see that. But I seriously think I don't care if it's Rhodes or Orton, somebody's got to get that belt off of Reigns. So
Tom is saying he feels that it's going to be Orton versus Roman at the Rumble, and I do feel like it's going to be Orton versus Roman at the Rumble.
It possibly could be, especially with their rushing into already getting Orton against Bloodline. So I do actually see that.
Now, to go back to what you were saying though about somehow Cody wins the Rumble. I honestly feel that Cody doesn't need to win the Rumble in order to get his match against Roman. There are other ways of doing it. So
Doing a brand trade.
I don't think Cody this year wins the Rumble. I think somebody else actually does. And that person ends up actually picking Seth Rollins. And I know people are going to hate my pick, but I'm doing it anyway.
Of course.
That my pick to win the Royal Rumble this year, agree or not, I don't care. That my pick this year to win the Rumble, of course, is going to be CM Punk. As long as he doesn't have another match at the Rumble. And I'm saying CM Punk because I do feel like it's going to end up being a feud between Punk and Rollins, and Punk ends up winning and then choosing Rollins as his opponent at Mania. And that's,
let's expand CM Punk's ego as soon as he comes in. Go ahead.
Are you kidding me? Because there are other ways that Cody Rhodes can get to Roman. There are other ways of doing it. It doesn't have to be through the Rumble. And he won it last year. And I know, Shawn Michaels has won it back to back years. He did that before. I don't think Austin did, but I thought there was like one or two guys that have done it.
Austin
Yeah,
and Shawn are the only two that won it 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I'm talking about back to back.
Yeah, back to back. I think
Back to back was Shawn. I know Michaels did it. But I don't know if there was anybody else. But Thomas Burnett is a historian, so if we got that wrong,
yeah, usually I am too.
Yeah, he'll pop that up on the screen. Rollins versus Punk is money right now. It is. It's money. Just based off of what's going on right now on screen, they're definitely money.
Okay,
There was multiple people who's won the Rumble a couple times. Orton even won the Rumble a couple times.
Yeah, it says Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. Oh no, that's not back to
Thomas,
back.
That's what I thought. I was gonna say Austin because it was Shawn Michaels who won it back to back, and it was also Austin who won it back to back.
Logan.
I knew there was 2 people that I knew that won it back to back years.
But Hulk Hogan won it back to back. Shawn Michaels won it back to back.
Yeah, and then Austin won it.
And Austin.
Back to back. Yeah. So there was 3 people who won it back to back. I knew there was 2 or 3. And I knew it was Shawn and Austin, I figured did it. I could have sworn. So I kind of knew that. Hogan, I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure on that.
1991.
So I wasn't going to say that because I was like, I think he did, but I wasn't quite sure. So I didn't want to say it and be wrong. And so that's why I was like, well, Thomas Burnett's the historian, so he'll throw it out there. Yeah, so I don't know if you'll see anybody currently win it back-to-back years because there's so many big names out there right now that I think every year you're going to see somebody new win it. And so this year, we know Cody won it last year. I don't think you see Cody win it again this year. Again, you never know. I could definitely be wrong, but I don't think Cody does it. But hey, who am I? It's just one man's opinion. It is.
In your opinion.
Yes, in your opinion. Well, I should say, in my opinion, I don't see it happening. So it is what it is. But then the wife, also showed me a message that said, hey, don't forget that Damian Priest, has the money in the bank. So that kind of brings up another thing too. Like, when do you feel like Damian Priest is going to attempt to cash in?
That's a tough decision.
It is.
Especially because his time's starting to slowly wind down with that briefcase. And I don't know if they're going to have it at a WrestleMania again, or they're actually going to have it another PLE for Money in the Bank. Oh, I guess no, that was last year. Anyway, so it all depends on when his time is winding down as Money in the Bank holder. I think it's going to be soon. It's hard to predict because there were a couple times where we've been on this show and people have predicted on when he was going to actually do it. So, I mean, if I were to predict, I'd probably say when it gets probably towards that crunch time of he needs to do it or he's going to lose the briefcase, or maybe he'll be the very first person to not use it and then the time runs out. I mean, that could be a possibility. I mean, people have used it, they've won, they've used it, they've lost, but nobody in history has ever allowed that contract to have the time lapse and not be able to use it anymore. So maybe he could be one that won't use it and time will run out.
Here's the conundrum that I see. Now you're talking about WrestleMania, okay? And so let's say for instance you have two matches at Mania. Let's say your two main event matches are at Mania. And your two main event matches for the title. It goes CM Punk versus Rollins, and then let's say you have Cody versus Roman. If Cody beats Roman, okay, I don't think there's no way in hell that Damian Priest cashes in on Cody. I don't foresee that happening. Because there's no way that WWE is going to be like, yep, Cody finishes the story, but we have Damian come down and cash in on Cody and win that. No way in hell that happens.
No.
Because there would be so many people that would just be so pissed off at WWE for doing that. I don't foresee that happening. And I don't foresee it if Punk was to face Rollins and Punk wins. There's no way I would foresee them also being like, okay, Damian, you're going down to cash in on Punk. I don't see that happening either. And I know Christy's saying I see Priest cashing in on Rollins. I don't know. It's because right now with the way it's going is you're having Punk versus Rollins is what it's leaning towards. It's getting there. And that match is going to be money, like Thomas says. And so I'm looking at this going, that's kind of a conundrum now because you really can't have Damian cash in on either of those, especially right after winning it. Because no way in hell you're doing that with Cody Rhodes. That's just not happening. And Punk, I don't see it either. So if that's the matches at Mania, I'm not saying it will be, but if that is, maybe. Maybe. Now you might get some different matches at Rumble. Let's say somehow Rollins loses the title before Mania. Let's say that somehow, Punk faces Rollins before Mania. Punk wins, then Damian cashes in on CM Punk, but then CM Punk ends up getting his rematch at Mania. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm coming up with certain stipulations that of how I could potentially see Damian cashing in the briefcase. Right now, I don't know how it goes.
And the thing is Thomas saying he won't let his contract expire, but I mean, maybe not. But this is how my mind works, okay? I see it as Rhea makes it to where Damian doesn't cash in his briefcase, and then in the end, Damian, it expires. That's how I see it. Because Rhea has been mostly in charge of that briefcase and making it to where Damian can cash in or Damian can't. And I have a feeling she's going to end up screwing him over and not cashing in the briefcase. But that's the way how I think of it.
Well, another stipulation that somebody wrote, but before we get there, Christie says, "Do you see Priest cashing it?" And I go, "No, I
No.
I don't." Another stipulation that somebody wrote, but I personally don't see it happening, is because I don't think that they would want to finish the story that way. But what I mean is that somebody was saying, what if Cody challenges Damian Priest and says, "Hey, you have to put your briefcase on the line against me," and then Cody wins, and then he cashes it in on Roman. Now, cashing it in after the match, I don't foresee that happening because I don't think that's how Cody would want to finish the story. But if Cody faces Damian Priest and says, "Put your briefcase on the line," and Cody wins, he could then take that briefcase to Adam Pearce and say, "Hey, I'm using this briefcase as a championship match against Roman." And then he hands him the briefcase and says, "Hey, you said it's good for any place at any time. Here's the briefcase, and I'm doing it at Mania." I think that's another way you could potentially get Cody to get a shot at Roman without winning the Rumble.
Yeah.
Because he technically wouldn't have to attack Roman after a match. He could do it straight up and say, "I'm going to use this at Mania, and I want a one-on-one match with Roman at Mania." I think that could be a way of doing it. That would be a killer way. That would be a killer way.
Yeah, that'd be a good way of doing it. Yeah.
It would be. And so Thomas is saying Rhea just tried to cash it in at Survivor Series. She
At
did.
the wrong time.
Yep, it was definitely at the wrong time. And then Christy saying, if Cody challenges Priest for the briefcase and wins, it would be Miz versus Otis all over again. Not necessarily, because it's happened in the past. It's happened in the past. You had Edge, who challenged Mr. Kennedy and won it off of him too. So honestly, you never know. I personally don't know where they're going with the briefcase. It's going to be interesting to see. It's just, in my opinion, that's kind of what I feel, though. Is like I feel like that's how they could go with it. Is that Cody wins it and then just decides to challenge Roman in a one-on-one match at Mania. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Yeah. So Thomas, they did take the briefcase off of Kennedy because of injury. However, Kennedy wasn't actually injured. He just got the wrong. He just got like the wrong bit of advice from the doctor or whatever, because he was supposed to cash it in and win the championship. But then once he found out that he was hurt, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna drop the briefcase to Edge," and it's like, okay. So he ended up dropping the briefcase to Edge, and that's off of an injury that he didn't actually have. So I kind of felt bad for him because after that his career in WWE
tanked.
It tanked so bad after he lost the briefcase for Mr. Kennedy. That was pretty much it for him.
Which I'm glad. I didn't like him.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, I could not stand him at all.
Mr.
No surprise.
Kennedy. What was wrong with Mr. Kennedy?
He was annoying bit that he always had to say his name twice. He was annoying. He just was annoying on the mic. I just no. Could not stand him.
Mr. Kennedy was pretty cool.
Oh, no.
One that ended up in the back of a dumpster truck.
Yeah. Kennedy. Say it with me one time.
Nope.
Mr. Kennedy. So
Yep.
Thomas is saying he did his job then. Exactly.
Oh,
Yes,
have two aces in here now. Okay.
but now maybe you'll understand, though. Maybe you'll understand that's how it works. If you hate a heel, he's doing his job.
Ugh.
That's
Well,
what I've
good. I'm
always.
glad he did his job because I couldn't stand him.
That's what I've always told you. If you hate them as a heel, you're doing their job. They are absolutely doing their job. And so Christy's saying Dominic Mysterio, Dominic
And then we have, boy,
Mysterio. What?
he can't wrestle. He
You have a
can't.
problem with Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, he can't wrestle.
Hey, I do have a problem with Goldberg, and there's reasons for it.
Exactly.
And my reasons are valid. Okay.
Hornswoggle.
There's valid reasons. Just saying, there was valid reasons on that. But before we do wrap up the show, I kind of wanted because we know that the Rumble's about a month away. It's gonna be next month. We'll kind of get who we feel now is going to win, but then a week before the Rumble, we'll get our final answers just to see if we're still going to stick with our same answers. So currently, with what you see right now, who do you feel currently is going to win the Rumble?
Orton.
I don't see it because I think
that's what I see.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think so because I think Orton faces Roman at the Rumble. I thought
he said he was in it.
No, that was Cody.
It was Cody. You're right.
Yeah.
Crap.
That was Cody because I think if you want to stick with Orton, that's fine.
No. If he's not in it,
he hasn't said he's in it yet.
I'd have to say, wow. That's a tough one. You know what? I'm gonna go with Cody. I know you don't think he's probably gonna win it, but I'm just gonna go with him.
So Christy's saying Gunther. I don't think so because I don't think they're gonna put him in the main event yet, because they want to finish the story with Cody first. And then Thomas is saying it's either Cody, Punk, or LA Knight. Yeah.
No.
Or Solo. And then Christy's saying that Cody announced that he was in the Rumble before Nakamura spit red mist in his face. Yes. So looks like we have a few people here that maybe say Cody and Punk. I'm sticking with my choice of Punk. Now, on the women's side, where are you going with that one?
Oh, it would help if I knew all of who was actually going to be in it.
But that's why you're taking a shot in the dark right now.
Well, yeah, clearly. I'm going to say, Nia Jax.
Interesting. Okay. You're going with Nia. So Thomas is saying Becky. I'm taking a heck of a shot in the dark here. I am doing a hot take, so we say it. And I am saying your winner of the 2024 Royal Rumble is going to be none other than Shayna Baszler.
Shayna
freaking Baszler.
Yeah, that's a good choice too, but I'm still sticking with Nia.
Hey, that's okay. Stick with Nia. She's that force right now, but Thomas could definitely be right about it being Becky because, Becky is going to go up against Nia at some point. We're definitely going to see it, whether it actually be, yeah, in the match or like in the Rumble match itself or whatever. That could definitely be another part of it too. You could potentially see this thing because you don't really have another pay-per-view before the Rumble. There's not one
Which is
before
weird.
that. It's just the Rumble. So I'm saying this thing with Nakamura and Cody, that could be how Cody loses the Rumble, is that, Nakamura spits fist like that mist in Cody's face and eliminates Cody, and then they end up wrestling at the Chamber,
Mhm.
and then eventually Cody goes on to Mania. But yeah, it's just potentially that's how you could see things play out. But we're almost at that time now, so we definitely want to thank everybody for watching. It's been another fun episode. I know there was only two of us tonight. I'm not really sure what happened to everybody else. That's all right though. It was still a fun night.
And we held it together. So
Yeah, talking about some fun topics, so that's okay. So I could see that, Thomas. I could definitely see that. All right. So with that being said, Dragon Viper, you have any final thoughts?
just want to thank everybody for watching the show. And I hope everybody has a great night. And yeah, and I get to go to work after this. Yay.
All right. Well, we definitely want to thank everybody for watching, and we will see everybody next week for another episode of Between the Ropes. See y'all later.